Hey there, Chantoey fam. We're so happy to see you again. And welcome to Chantoey Visit Japan.
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, finally, right?
Yeah.
So glad to be bringing these videos to you. This video right here is Chantoey Visit Japan Tokyo Day 1, because we spent 3 days in Tokyo and they were so jam-packed full of events and things to do that we're going to take it one day at a time. So today, we're gonna do a little bit of Tokyo wandering, show you some of the little bit of the area. Also, we're gonna hop over to Studio Ghibli or Studio Ghibli, depending on where you're from. And we're going to talk about watabe. It's a delicious unaju restaurant, and I can't wait to tell you more about that one. So, stick around, let's do this. So first things first, we've got a really long flight. So to break it up a little bit, we went from Tampa, Florida to San Francisco, California. Spent a couple of days there with my family and some friends. And then we're leaving out of San Francisco Airport, headed over to Tokyo, Japan. But there is one thing you cannot leave San Francisco without doing.
That's right. When you're in San Francisco, you have to get the clam chowder and sourdough bread. And so we got ours from Bowdoin. And if you can't get over to Fisherman Wharf over in San Francisco, you can also, they have Bowdoin's at the airport, which is what we did. They're at all the different terminals. So that's what we ended up doing, both to eat before the flight, and then also we got some snacks and all so that we had something to eat during our long 10-hour flight. 10 to 12. Yeah.
12-hour flight.
That's right.
It was a 12-hour flight. When we got to the airport, we were super excited. We had a lot to say. Some of you have been sticking around on our social media. You got that info. And then when we were on the plane, it was like a 9-seat row plane. So there was like 3 seats, then 3 seats in the middle, and 3 seats on the side. So we were in the middle, and it wasn't too bad. It was pretty comfortable.
Yeah, you were in the aisle, I was in the middle, so it was great. I think there was like 1 or 2 moments we stepped to the side, we could see what was outside the window, but for the most part we just stayed in our seats. The ideal was we were going to try to stay awake the whole time, that way that when we got into Tokyo we would have been on their schedule, which would have been about 9 o'clock at night. Yeah. So we would have been able to sleep, but it turned into we were just going on and off sleeping throughout the flight. It made it go by faster as well. So
absolutely. So without further ado, here's our 12-hour flight.
12 hours later.
When we got off the flight, it was definitely like a renewed moment. We were super excited to be in Japan. It was incredibly welcoming with all the signs and everything that we needed to pass to get to customs. And actually, customs was a breeze. You just dropped you right in this green tube and you just popped out on the other side, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. No. Customs was lots of lines, lots of forms, checking your bags, making sure you didn't bring meat or seeds or foliage or anything like that. So customs was interesting. It's definitely a little scary because this is the moment where they can say, nope, sorry, we're gonna send you on the next flight out. But we made it through customs, so that was really great. And we got immediately greeted with all the beautiful videos of Japan, from culture to landmarks to food.
Yeah, which is like one of those things that's kind of like, man, you're excited because you're in Japan, but also that oh, look at all the food, look at all the stuff, but also not much is open right now, and on what we have scheduled was to go to our Airbnb. So we knew our first meal wasn't going to be until the next day, pretty much.
Right. And before we jump into our Airbnb tour, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what it's like to get off the plane for those of you who are making plans to travel to Japan. You can do currency exchange right there at the airport. We flew into Narita Airport. They have a machine for currency exchange during after hours, and then they have a currency exchange counter that was currently open while we were there. But we had like 30 minutes before it closed, so they kept it open long enough for the last flight to come through, which was really nice. So if you need to exchange bills, that's the way to do it. But yeah, so like he said, we decided to stay at an Airbnb that evening, which, coming into Japan late at night, never been there, don't know the travel system yet, we found an extraordinary Airbnb that offered free pickup and drop off to Narita Airport, which was incredible for us because our only option at that time of night was a taxi. And although the taxis are pristine and super clean and super friendly service in Japan, they're very expensive. So having a free pickup and drop off to the airport was ideal. We want to show you our room. It was very Japanese traditional decor, very neat.
Yeah, very small, but also had everything that you needed. We got in there and quickly were able to just clean up, shower, just get ready for the night. And then that was an interesting night just because I think we were still kind of riding that low high of just we're here, we're in Japan,
Yeah,
here it is. But luckily we got some hours of sleep and we're able to make our way.
Absolutely. And thank goodness for our host. She was super nice. It was typhoon coming in while we were there, and she made sure she sent us out with some umbrellas, which we were super grateful, and we're so happy that we had those. So yeah, so the next day, our host took us back to Narita Airport so we can grab the KO liner, and it was a very nice ride, and so we just got some footage of it, and we'd love to show you the countryside with the rice paddies and different agriculture, city blocks. It was literally all here, so enjoy.
One of the first things we did was we walked around, but we went to look for something to eat. And so this would be our first kind of restaurant that we've been, our first food really in Japan. And we went and we got this nice ramen place, which was so delicious. It was, we both got two different ramens, and they were both very, the amount of flavor, especially in the broth.
So many depths of flavor. I actually got black garlic.
Did you?
And what did you get?
It had to be some sort of tonkatsu. Yours was spicy.
Yeah, spicy black garlic.
It was very delicious, and it wasn't just the broth, but all the flavors just permeate all the different ingredients there. It was a nice setup too. One of the things we quickly realized is that there's complimentary tea that's in most places whenever you dine. Usually it's going to be either a barley tea, sometimes a green tea, But those are some of the ones. And then if you go to like a Chinese restaurant, they'll sometimes have jasmine tea, but that's kind of like their complimentary tea service they have there, as well as sometimes like water or mizu. So
yeah, and then this particular ramen restaurant, although like we already talked about how delicious the ramen broth was, they had different pickles that were on the table for you to enjoy as well, and we got the gyoza, which was super delicious. So needless to say, our first meal in Japan was fantastic, and we were completely satisfied.
Yeah, happy faces, happy bellies. It was a good time.
Yeah, and so we did a little bit more walking through the Tokyo area. Definitely found some of that technological Tokyo stuff with this cute little robot, which was really fun. We went to a bakery next, which was My Neighbor Totoro themed, and it was just perfect because our next stop was Studio Ghibli. When you go inside this restaurant, you do see Studio Ghibli themed items, especially, like I said, My Neighbor Totoro is on display here, and they had these really adorable, cute little Totoro shoe pastries that were filled with delicious creams. And the different creams were identifiable based on what ornament was on Totoro's head. And we got 3 different flavors to try.
Yeah, we had strawberry, we had chocolate, and matcha flavored. So we each got a different flavor at the park there. So we actually took them, we went over to the park, Inokashira Park. Yeah, so that park is a really huge park when you look at it on Google Maps, but it's literally like, we went there and it's a nice place just to get away from kind of the city area, but then also that was a nice kind of like quiet, calm place for us to enjoy our pastries. We went, after we were done, we started to head our way towards Studio Ghibli, which is actually a walk through the park here, which was amazing. There were swan paddle boats. There were a bunch of different kind of just like traditional Japanese structures all throughout, like lamps and lanterns. Shrines were there as well. But you're just kind of immersed in this kind of like nature and traditional Japanese scenery as you're going through, so very much like you would probably see in any of the Studio Ghibli films and how they are kind of portrayed.
Yeah, and one cool thing I noticed, even in the most city-like of areas, there is always an intentional space for nature to be. Little parks or little side streets that just are overgrown with like trees in a good way, or plants or foliage so that you can relax in nature. So very thoughtful of nature, Japan is.
Yeah, absolutely. There are residents who try to have some sort of garden or something like that, if they're able to, in the city itself, which is really cool because I think that's important. That is very important there. But yeah, so we finally we got to the museum. The museum itself doesn't really allow for any photography or filming inside the actual museum, but outside we had some films as well. So we gave you as much as we could as what we had. When you first get in, you do get these kind of like movie reel tickets, and they each are unique. They have a different kind of like scene from a different Studio Ghibli film, so those are used not only as like a souvenir, but also it's your way of going to see the short film, which the one that was playing during that time was The Day I Bought a Star, which is really cool. Actually, I don't know. Have you ever seen that short?
Never seen it before, but it was super cute.
Yeah, even though we couldn't understand it because there was no English subtitles or anything like that, it was still great to just watch the story and kind of figure out what's going on, and just all the visuals and everything like that was amazing. There was a map that we were using that kind of showed the whole layout of the place. It's really huge, but also just the way that they pack just like all these different rooms. Some of them are small, some of them are large rooms, depending on what they're looking for like animation and such.
Yeah, they had rooms that showed off their animation process, how they created the different scenes, and then how they projected them into animated movies. They also showed different areas of what the animated studio workspaces would look like. They had tons of flip books of different animes or anime movies that they had created.
Yeah, The Boy and the Heron, especially since that was a new one, they had a lot of newer stuff with those flip books.
Yeah, they had like a whole exhibit for just The Boy and the Heron upstairs. So different rooms with different purposes. Some were just fun to play in, where the Neko bus was for the kids.
Yeah.
And then they had different areas, like I said, that were just kind of educating you on the way that they do their process. And then different rooms that had memorabilia, very museum-esque with things from the past. And then they had a really neat gift shop that had a ton of different stuff. And then they had a Straw Hat Cafe with some good food for you to enjoy there as well. Luckily, they did let us take some photos outside, so we got as much as we could out there for you.
Absolutely. And there was actually a spiraling staircase that we took when we got outside, because you go to like the top floor, and all of a sudden there's another staircase that takes you up to this kind of interesting area. It's kind of castle in the sky theme. There's a huge robot that we got to take pictures in front of, as well as a couple other props that were in the area as you're walking through. When we made our way down, there was a little courtyard area that had just different set pieces there, including this water pump from My Neighbor Totoro that we got to play around with as well. And it's just kind of just a neat way of seeing these like little Easter eggs, these little parts of these films here. Even when we left afterwards, we went to this it's kind of like a Neko bus, but it's very much just like a Studio Ghibli themed bus that we ended up taking so that we could make our way towards our next stop, which would have been dinner. And we were already kind of exhausted from walking, so that helped very much with that.
Yeah, and so we can't wait to tell you a little bit about Watabe. Watabe is an unaju restaurant where you can get unaju or unagi, so eel basically.
Yeah.
And they are just world class in their craft. They've got recipes and methods that have been used for over 70 years. This current location has been standing for 23 years. And they're very intentional about the way that they make and serve their food. They start off with a world-class provider for eel, which we learned there's two different providers that you can get for eel in Japan. There's the Chinese providers and the Japanese providers, based on where the eel is from. And so it's very common and completely acceptable to ask where it's from. And just in case you're wondering, the one you want is the one from Japan. So definitely find a shop or a store that offers that kind and give that a go. They had two different kinds of eel available for us to have. And they have a light and a dark version that they prepare. And they're so intentional with the craft of their menu that they even go as far as to give you guidelines on what to do before arriving. One thing that I thought was really cool and interesting is that before you arrive, they highly recommend that you don't wear any cologne or perfume because it will interfere with the flavor on your palate, which I thought was really cool and intentional, so I'm all for it. But when we first got there, we had a couple of order aheads, which we knew that we were going to be getting, but then there were a few surprises too. The first dish we got,
it was kind of like a chef special dish. It was a kind of a fish dish that I guess he grilled and added some different vegetables on top of that were not what we expected at all, but
like charred asparagus and like a onion relish.
Yeah,
so good.
It was really good, and again, not something that we first initially ordered, but we were glad that it was a welcome surprise there. One of the other things, so we had two things that we ordered ahead. They run out of a certain amount each night. The first one was the eel fins, which they kind of just kind of barbecue up or like grilled up to get it all charry and such. And then that was really delicious. That one was really good.
It was super good. Like the outside was, like he said, charred, so it was a little bit crunchy and crispy, but the inside was so smooth and so silky. It was just a beautiful pairing of textures, and it was really tasty.
Yeah, the second one, which I know will probably turn people away, but we wanted to try it anyways, was the eel liver. And this one, you know, is they marinate it in kind of like a, it's kind of like teriyaki, but not. It's still got that like kind of Swedish marinade to it. And I think the thing that might throw people off is kind of like the texture of it, because again, it's an organ. It's gonna be chewy and stuff like that. But dense. I think with the flavor and everything like that, I enjoyed it and all. Good. It was definitely one of those things where I was happy to have that experience with it. Before we even get to the main event, which is of course the eel, the unaju, and just like what Chantal said, there's different ones you can order. You can order the light, you can order the heavy. We ordered both of them, so they gave us a box that has both of them in there. The lighter one is kind of less marinated and all, so you get more of the natural flavors of the barbecue and such with it, whereas the heavier one, the darker one, is going to have a lot more flavor just from the marinade and everything that they put on the eel there. But they were both fantastic. They were both delicious. I was more for the heavier one, but like I said, both were delicious. It came with a set of pickles that were fantastic.
So tasty.
Different kinds, you know. And then they also give you a tray of about 4 different types of toppings that you can put with your eel, but also for what you do about halfway through the meal, because the meal itself, it naturally gets cooler as the meal progresses. So one of the things that they do is they offer this kind of broth, and then what you do is you take some of your eel and you put it in with the broth, and then you can mix it with some of the toppings so that you can not only, you know, warm up, reheat your eel, but also you get a new flavor, a new form of the eel to try. You know, eel soup essentially. But so that was fantastic. That definitely, it also kind of gave you a break of the same flavor too, because you got to experiment and get a little bit more from the meal, a little bit more flavor. Originally we knew we wanted to try unaju, and there's a couple of restaurants that serve that at home for us, and we kept going back and forth. Should we wait till Japan? So we held out, and the wait was well worth it.
Well, that's it for Tokyo Day 1. We've got a couple more days in Tokyo left, and we will show you those in the next few videos. I hope that you're loving our Tokyo series so far, although it's just begun. Make sure you're subscribing to our social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of that, so you can stay in the loop of where we are and what we're doing. Also, check out our website. It'll make sure to give you the current location that we're at. And lastly, we've been having a lot of people ask, well, how can I send you money? How can we help support you in your travels? How can we see more things? And we've tried a few avenues, and we thought the best way was to go unmonetized. So if you're someone who just really wants to give and you just can't help it, feel free to donate to any of these options down below, and we will be happily receiving your donation, and we'll go really far with it. We'll make sure we go to really cool places and make really neat videos for you to check out.
Yeah, just keep it locked here, and we'll be pumping out those videos real soon. And here we are, we're in Japan.
Yay, Japan. All right, guys, take care. See you in the next video.
See ya.
Welcome to my dream. It's good to see you again. We can kick back now. The show has reached the end. Turn out the light.
息を吸